5 sinister rules my father discovered to survive in cursed, haunted rural Nebraska. The first entry in the crumbling journal sent icy tendrils of fear clawing up Jake's spine. 5 sinister rules my father discovered to survive in cursed, haunted rural Nebraska. He could hardly breathe. The old attic felt crowded with spirits, shadows flitting through the dim light, and the wind moaning through eaves like a ghostly lament. He had laughed off the town's macabre tales, but this promised horror. Rule 1 screamed at him from the yellowing page. Never attend community gatherings after sunset. He felt his pulse quicken as he remembered the mingling laughter from last week's potluck. Jake's heart raced. He couldn't shake the feeling that along with the meatloaf, something sinister was being served. He could almost hear whispers, his neighbors exchanging fearful glances, wondering if he too had noticed the creeping stillness cloaking Elmsworth. Next, the journal twisted deeper into darkness. Rule 2 advised against looking into the eyes of strangers. Jake shuddered, recalling the way Mrs. Henderson had gripped his arm last month, her eyes darting like trapped animals. "You boys stay inside after dark," she had warned, though her voice had faltered, revealing the fear lurking behind her brave facade. The familiar seemed off, tainted by time-worn secrets he had never considered. He touched his phone screen to search for some distraction, but it buzzed with countless unanswered texts and missed calls from his mother, each one a confirmation of their isolation. Jake stood, trembling, each floorboard creaking beneath him, resonating with dread. Time felt twisted, shadows deepened, and the air thickened, almost smothering him. He bolted downstairs, desperate for daylight, but the sun was sinking faster than he had ever seen. Jake's restlessness spiked as he overheard hushed voices at the corner store. "That boy just like his father. Poor kid," a woman whispered. He froze, peering from behind a cereal box. The sheriff, his father's old friend, sat across the room, the corners of his lips curving up unsettlingly. Hadn't he promised to watch over Jake? Was it even safe to trust the town anymore? It felt like everyone wore a mask, friendly faces hiding behind the veneer of hometown charm. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The night closed in around him like a vice. The air turned to ice, as if it were soaked in despair. The mailman hadn't shown up in days. Norm, the kind man who tended to all the flowers in Elmsworth, was now a distant memory. Jake dared to step outside, the familiar laneways morphing into a maze of fear and isolation. Was he the last sane person left? As he neared the edge of town, laughter drifted toward him from the bonfire in the distance. The flickering flames danced, but all he could feel was the weight of unseen eyes. They watched him. He was both observer and prey. The moment he stepped into the circle of light, their laughter turned stagnant, clinging to the cool night. Faces he once knew now twisted into grotesque shapes. And then it happened. The cold grip of a hand landed heavily on his shoulder. He turned, and there stood the sheriff, his smile all teeth, stretching wider than a wolf's. "You really shouldn't have come here," Jakey froze. The question ricocheted through his mind. Can the very people who claim to be your protectors be the architects of your doom? The walls of his childhood home loomed behind him in shadow, and Jake knew he was standing at the precipice of a dark legacy that said the worst was yet to come. Jake's heart hammered in his chest, each thud like a desperate warning. The sheriff's grip tightened, his fingers digging in like talons. This wasn't just a friendly hello. It felt like a noose tightening around his throat. The laughter around the bonfire faded into an eerie hush, all attention shifting to him, as if they were waiting for the outcome of a game. He forced his gaze away from the sheriff's hungry smile, scanning the shadowy faces of his neighbors. Were they even human anymore? "Jake." The sheriff leaned in, his breath hot and stale, Didn't your father teach you anything? The words slithered into his ears, laced with contempt, twisting memories into nightmarish shapes. He couldn't breathe. The air felt tangible, heavy as dread pressed down on him. What do you mean? Jake managed to rasp, though deep inside he already knew. They never wanted you here. Not after what happened, not after the truth. A snicker escaped from behind the crowd, sending chills racing down Jake's spine. He glanced past the sheriff but only saw mocking eyes. The warmth he used to feel dissipated like morning mist burnt away by the rising sun. Then came the voices, rising like a storm from the shadows. They murmured and laughed, lost fragments of conversations wrapped in malice and derision. Did he think he could escape? Echoed one. Just like his father, always too brave for his own good. Another chimed in, the words laden with cruel delight as they circled him. Jake felt more trapped than ever. He needed to escape, to run, but his legs felt rooted to the spot. The cautious whispers of the old journal flickered in his mind, begging him to remember the rules, to remember the danger lurking beyond the bonfire glow. But just as he wrestled with the panic pooling in his stomach, the sheriff stepped forward. There's still time to leave, boy. People like us, we always find a way. The threat lingered in the air, chilling him to the bone. Jake swallowed hard, refusing to show his fear. To leave? Where else? The sheriff leaned in closer, his eyes glinting with something sinister. The safe places aren't for you. You know too much now. And there it was, the unspoken truth that loomed over Elmsworth like a thick fog. He wasn't meant to uncover these secrets. He wasn't part of the community. He was just a burden. It struck him like ice water, paralyzing him. Had the sheriff played a part in his father's downfall? A sinking dread clawed at his insides, twisting deeper. Jake took a shaky step back, heart racing. What if I don't want to be part of this? The sheriff's laughter filled the night like a chilling melody, resonating through the whispers. You've already made your choice, Jake. The rules aren't meant to be broken. He gestured to the circle of familiar faces, all still grinning, highlighting the truth hidden in plain sight. The very people he grew up with had sharpened their teeth and donned their masks as fear coiled tighter. Jake turned away, intent on fleeing into the night but not before one last glance back. Dark forms flitted just outside the blazing light, writhing like shadows with intentions he couldn't comprehend. Where could he go? The town he'd trusted was a ghostly labyrinth of his deepest anxieties. He dashed into the dark void, heart pounding with every step. The suffocating silence thickened, like the air before a storm. Behind him, the laughter erupted again, sending icy spikes down his spine. Run, little boy. It won't save you. As terror surged, Jake broke into a full sprint, desperate for an escape from curses buried deep within his bloodline. But the darkness that enveloped him felt all too familiar as it whispered his name. Did he truly have a choice? Or was he already ensnared in a web of nightmares spun by his own family? The question echoed as he turned another corner, racing deeper into the shadows of his own fate. Jake barreled through the underbrush, branches clawing at his clothes like desperate hands. The laughter faded, but the whispers clung to him, trailing like a dark cloud. He's running scared, just like his father. The voices dripped with a satisfied malice that plunged him deeper into dread. Each step felt heavier, churning the soil beneath his feet into a muddy quagmire. He could feel the weight of those eyes, countless stares bored into his back, suffocating him in the oppressive darkness. He pressed on, the fading glow of the bonfire dissipating behind him. Was there truly anywhere to escape to? The woods loomed ahead like ancient sentinels, and the trees twisted grotesquely against the stark moonlight. He stumbled as he ran, the path writhing as if it sought to swallow him whole. Jake's mind raced, thoughts spiraling into a jumbled mess of childhood recollections, secrets hidden beneath layers of denial. His father's journal, the musty pages that had warned him of these very dangers. But could he recall anything useful? Panicked, Jake slowed long enough to catch his breath, leaning against a gnarled oak that towered above him, its trunk twisted like a spine. The wind whispered through the branches, carrying fragments of his father's warnings. Never trust the dark. They come for what you hold dear. He gasped, the air sharp and cold against his lungs. What was so dear to him now? Was it even worth holding on to? The sheriff's taunts echoed in his ears, scraping at his sanity. Jake shoved his back against the rough bark, trying to will the whispers away, focusing instead on the only words he could remember. 5 rules, each more sinister than the last. Rule 1. Don't venture alone after dusk, he mumbled, trying to steady himself. A cold gust of wind swept through the hollow, swirling leaves around his feet. The forest throbbed with a pulse, alive with menace, as if it, too, wanted to remind him. Suddenly, a rustle in the bushes froze him. He squinted into the shadows, heart hammering again, each beat amplifying with dread. They were coming for him. Gathering up courage, he took a cautious step forward. The path forked ahead, veering left into denser darkness or right toward the faint trace of a flickering light in the distance. A flutter of movement sent him crashing back against the tree. Eyes glinted from the dark, a pair, then 2 more. He could hear their breath, heavy and ragged. Look who ran away, a voice jeered, dripping with vile humor. It was a girl, Sarah, a girl from the town, a face he recognized from the old bonfire days. But her eyes were no longer filled with the warmth of childhood friendship. They were cold, predatory. Why are you following me? He choked out. Her laughter was sharp, shattering the fragile silence. You never understood, did you? You think you can break free? Anxiety spiraled. He risked a glance behind him, considering his choices. The blurry lights seemed so comforting. But fear shackled his feet, making the bond tightening around him grow ever tighter. Rule 2. Don't show fear, he muttered under his breath. Jake clutched at the ingrained survival lessons, desperate for clarity, but the air felt thicker, stifling. Sarah stepped closer, the shadows dancing around her like she was part of them, merging into something unrecognizable. Just join us, Jake. You'll soon understand that breaking the rules comes at a price. The darkness stirred. The trees sighed as if agreeing, swaying ominously as a creeping fog curled around their trunks. He had to decide: stay and fight against the tide or plunge into the ominous light ahead. Jake squared his shoulders, nerves aflame. I don't belong to you, he shot back, sounding stronger than he felt. But doubt gnawed at him, leaving a bitter taste. As he weighed his options, the light flickered brighter, revealing a glimpse of what lay ahead, a shimmering apparition, haunting yet inviting. Was it salvation or a vicious trap? The heaviness of the moment pressed down on Jake, and he could sense the grip of his destiny solidifying before him. What awaited him? On that path, would he uncover the depth of the secrets his father had hidden, or was he about to unravel the threads of the curse that tied him to Elmsworth? He took in a deep breath, ready to step forward, when a sudden scream shattered the night. The scream cut through the shadows like a knife, reverberating in the night. It was a sound of pure horror, twisting Jake's stomach into knots. The air thickened. He felt paralyzed, every instinct screaming at him to run. But the weight of Sarah's gaze held him fast, a chilling reminder of the stakes. What was that? He dared to rasp, but his question slipped into the void, swallowed by the dark. The flickering light seemed to pulse, inviting but perilous, casting eerie shapes on the ground. Fear is a poison, Jake, Sarah whispered, her voice like silk, wrapping around him. You shouldn't fear the dark. You should fear what lurks within it. The laughter dissolved into the night, leaving a palpable tension. Jake glanced at the path toward the light. It was still there, glowing like a beacon, but now it felt tainted. Shadows writhed along the ground, fluttering like dark wings, eager to consume him. Why did you scream? He shot at Sarah. Did you feel that? Something's wrong. In her eyes, he saw a flicker of something monstrous. That was just the beginning, Jake. You've come to play a game, but it has rules and consequences. Jake's heart raced, pounding against his ribs. What game? What are you talking about? You're not making sense. Your father knew the rules well, Sarah hissed, stepping closer. But he failed to keep them. Like you will. Bile rose in his throat, Panic clawed at his chest. "What do you mean?" My father, with a sudden burst. A figure burst from the underbrush, a man. His face contorted with pain. He stumbled into the clearing, clutching his side, blood seeping through his fingers. The terror in his eyes mirrored Jake's, a glimpse of the horrors concealed in the woods. "Run!" the stranger gasped, before collapsing to the ground. In that moment, Jake felt the fabric of reality fraying around him. He didn't want to look away from the flickering light, but the man's desperate plea tore at him, rooting him deep in his own fear. Was it self-preservation or cowardice that kept him paralyzed? With a jolt, he turned, plunging back into the murky path behind him. Branches cracked and snapped as he raced deeper into the encroaching night. He could hear Sarah's laughter trailing behind, rich with malice, curling around him like smoke. "You can't escape the game. You're already a player, Jake." Panicking, he dodged left, then right, trying to outrun the echoes of her voice. The forest began to close in, trees hunched low like sentinels, their gnarled limbs reaching out, craving his scent. Shadows flickered around him, whispering threats he could not decipher. Then he spotted something, a weathered signpost half buried in the undergrowth. The words were faded, barely legible in the dim light, but one word stood out starkly against its rotting background. "Caution." Jake skidded to a stop. The whispering wind calmed, allowing a quiet that felt unnatural. He could feel the forest holding its breath, waiting. The threat was no longer just the danger of the game, but a deeper understanding. Something lurking just beneath the soil of Elmsworth desperately wanted him. He squinted into the darkness. What if he stumbled upon the truths his father had uncovered? Would they set him free, or would they bind him tighter to this cursed place? A low growl rumbled in the shadows, and he turned, heart racing again, pulse pounding. The darkness started to shift, an undercurrent of malicious energy drawing near. Jake felt it then, a presence emerging behind him. Was it Sarah? One of the other boys? A sinister figment of his swirling imagination? Or something worse, something truly deadly lurking in the night? To his terror, a shape materialized from the void. It stood tall, features indistinguishable, but its eyes glinted with a hunger Jake had never encountered before. "Welcome to the game," it intoned, voice echoing like a death knell. In his last moments of clarity, Jake realized he was standing on the edge of a nightmare. What rules had his father learned? What price awaited him? As the creature lunged, Jake braced for impact, knowing he might be running right into the heart of darkness itself. What would happen next? Could he uncover the truth in time? Or was it too late? Jake's world shattered into chaos as the creature lunged. Instinct took over, and he ducked, narrowly evading whatever nightmare the forest had conjured. He stumbled, regaining his balance just as he felt a rush of cold air whip past him, as if the darkness itself was trying to swallow him whole, heart pounding. He sprinted deeper into the woods, branches clawing at his face, scratching his skin. The shadows seemed to pulsate with life, darting away from the beast behind him. He felt a terror he had never known, a primal fear that pushed him to run faster. As he dashed, the trees, twisted and warped, blurred around him. His breath came in ragged gasps, each inhale sharp with the bite of damp earth and decay. It was a race against time, against whatever horrors awaited him. The laughter of Sarah echoed in his mind, taunting him, mixing with the beast's growl behind him. She had said fear was a poison, and now it coursed through his veins that he skidded to a halt, breath hitching in his throat. Ahead, the forest opened into a small clearing. Moonlight streamed down like a spotlight, illuminating a grotesque tableau. Remnants of past players scattered like fallen leaves. Crushed bones, tattered clothing, and dark shapes silently watching from the treeline sent a chill cascading down his spine. Not far from where he stood, there lay a battered notebook, partially buried beneath the dirt. His father's name was scrawled on the cover, the letters barely legible. What had he written down? Cautiously, Jake snapped the book open. The pages were filled with scrawled notes, sketches of symbols, and recountings of strange occurrences. Each line dripped with dread, tinged with madness. Scanning through the words, He found phrases that made his blood run cold. The first rule: never stray from the path. The second rule: trust no one, not even a friend. Each revelation clawed at his sanity. The game had rules twisted and merciless. But where was the rest? The answers flickered in and out of view, taunting him. The forest was alive with whispers, as if the trees conspired among themselves. Jake felt something cold slithering along his spine, his senses heightening. He realized he was not alone. Figures moved just beyond the reach of light, eyes glimmering with malice, forms indistinct yet undeniably there. Suddenly, thunderous footsteps echoed from behind. The creature was close. Panic surged through him, driving Jake to his knees as he scoured the pages for more of his father's notes. The third rule: a choice must be made. What choice? What sacrifice? Jake tore through the pages. Colors blurred as he frantically searched for clarity, feeling the bitter tang of hopelessness in his mouth. He knew the creature was near, and yet, he had to know the rules. The game was rigged, and he was already trapped. A low growl rumbled, echoing through the clearing as the shadows surged forward. The eyes of the watchers glinted with anticipation. They were gathering, creeping closer, drawn by his fear. "Think, Jake, think," he murmured desperately, sweat pooling along his brow. But it was too late for thinking. The ground shook as the creature stepped into the clearing, its massive form illuminated by the sliver of moon above. Fangs bared, a guttural growl escaping its throat, it loomed over him. "Choose now, your fate awaits." Time paused as Jake's heart sank. What was the fourth rule? And what was the price he would pay when the final decision came crashing down? With a rush of dread consuming him, Jake faced the creature. The game demanded blood, but would it be his, or would he have to sacrifice someone else? He had to decide. In that moment of suffocating fear, one question beat like a drum in his mind: could he find a way to outsmart the evil that surrounded him before it was too late? The creature loomed, monstrous and menacing, its breath a foul wind that chilled Jake's skin. Shadows danced around him, hungry for his terror. He felt the weight of its gaze, as if the beast were devouring his fear, growing stronger by the second. Jake's instincts screamed at him to run, to escape. But where? The rules his father had written suffocated the air around him. "Choose." The creature rumbled again, its voice raw and dripping with hunger. Panic surged. Jake clawed at the pages in the notebook, willing them to reveal the dominating rule he desperately needed. What choice, what sacrifice? He whispered, feeling the ground pulsate beneath him. Then, a soft rustle echoed in the darkness at the edge of the clearing. The figures shifting in the shadows were now bolder, creeping closer. Faces twisted in grotesque glee. They were remnants of previous players, victims unable to escape this nightmare. Jake's heart raced as one stepped forward, a girl with hollow eyes and a wide, cruel grin. It was Sarah, or a nightmarish reflection of her. "What you do next, choose well," she taunted, her laughter a sinister melody that sent shivers down his spine. The creature shifted, muscles rippling with anticipation, and Jake's hands trembled over the pages. He needed clarity. "The fourth rule." What is the fourth rule? He choked out, feeling the sweat bead down his brow. Instinct told him he was running out of time, running out of options. As the surrounding shadows danced, his eyes caught a faint glimmer on a nearby tree, something reflecting the moonlight. He glanced up and saw a crude carving, deep and jagged. "Don't trust them," it said, a command echoing the words he'd just read. It sent a frisson of realization down his spine. He could trust no one, not even this reflection of Sarah. The creature growled again, the sound like a thunderstorm rolling in. "You must choose, boy," it bellowed, frustration creeping into its voice. Jake knew he had to make a decision. But was it a true sacrifice if he chose to save himself? Or would that doom someone else? Perhaps even Sarah? The faces in the darkness twisted, and he felt their collective hunger. The whispers grew louder, the rules tightening around him like a noose. "Your life or hers?" the girl hissed. "One of you will be free to leave. The other will remain." Jake's heart raced as he panicked. Every part of him urged him to save himself, but a flicker of guilt toyed with him in the back of his mind. What if that girl had relied on him? What if they weren't playing for just survival? He suddenly felt sick with the choice before him. The ground trembled again, the shadows closing in, crawling toward him with claws outstretched. Make your choice, the beast thundered, its patience snapped. Jake stood, heart racing, breath coming in strangled gasps. The feeling of impending doom settled like lead in his stomach. He looked toward Sarah, her mocking eyes filled with darkness, and then back at the creature, waiting with an insatiable hunger. I choose, he shouted, his voice cracking. The clearing thickened with tension, each second stretching on like an eternity, and Jake realized that the answers might lie not in the choice itself, but in the shadows lurking behind it. Would he sacrifice his own humanity? Or would he condemn the girl he once cared for, only to inherit the twisted fate awaiting any who dared play this deadly game? The weight of the world bore down on him as the shadows swirled closer, anticipation pulsing in the air. The final moment approached. What was he willing to lose? In that heartbeat, Jake understood that the real horror was not just the creature, but the truth they all carried, the desire to survive at any cost, and with that, the chilling question loomed over him. Was survival worth the price? Suddenly, a twisted smile spread across the creature's face, revealing rows of razor-sharp teeth. Jake's world tilted, teetering on the brink of unimaginable horror. What would happen if he refused to play? The air felt thick, almost sticky, with an electric tension that pressed against Jake's chest. He could barely breathe. The creature's smile widened, its massive form blocking out the moonlight, casting long shadows that seemed to stretch hungrily toward him. Each second stretched painfully, like a taunt, daring him to break under the weight of his decision. Choose, the beast bellowed, the word resonating through the clearing like thunder cracking against the sky. Jake's mind raced. Could he truly save Sarah? The faces in the shadows shifted restlessly, their eyes glinting, filled with a ravenous longing. They were waiting, craving the fallout of his choice. He felt the prickly heat of dread creep up his spine. What if I don't choose? He stammered, fighting against the paralyzing fear. The beast's laughter rolled out, deep and guttural. Refusal is a choice in itself, boy. But it comes with a price far heavier than the one you are considering. Jake glanced at Sarah, or what remained of her. The twisted grin plastered on her face spoke volumes of the despair he couldn't let himself see. Was she a monster, or merely a victim caught in the same trap? Did she still want him to choose her? Please, he whispered, heart hammering in his chest. Help me. The plea slipped from his lips like a desperate wish cast into a dark well. But her eyes only gleamed with malevolence. You have to pick, Jake, or else the shadows will feast on both our souls. The truth sunk in harder than he expected. She wanted him to decide. But why? Fear replaced the hope he had harbored. He turned away, back to the creature that thrummed with sinister energy, eager to devour his turmoil. Your choice will reveal your true nature. It boomed, eyes fixing on him like a predator savoring its prey. A selfless sacrifice or a coward's desperation. The words bounced around in his head, agony twisting inside him. He couldn't help but think of his father's notebook, the rules that had governed their lives. Each page spoke of darkness, horror, the unthinkable choices they made to survive. He realized then that this wasn't just about him and Sarah. It was about the twisted legacy his father had left behind. The rules weren't merely survival tricks. They were traps. Traps that snared unwary hearts, turning love into weaponized fear. Choose, the beast cried once more, its patience waning. In a sudden burst of clarity, Jake gripped the notebook tighter. With a surge of strength, he found the resolve he thought had vanished. He raised the notebook to the creature, heart racing as he pointed to a page, eyes scouring for the very rule that could be his salvation. But just then, the shadows around him shifted violently, twisting like serpents ready to strike. The faces distorted, contorting in horror as a storm of whispers erupted. He will choose, he must choose. Jake's heart raced, a desperate urge clawed at his throat. What if I choose neither? What if I refuse to let you take either of us? The creature's eyes narrowed, and a low growl emanated from it. That choice will decide the fate of more than just you and Sarah. The storm will devour all who remain under its dark influence, and it will be your fault. The implications hung in the air, suffocating. Would he doom the others lingering amidst the shadows? The sickening thought twisted the pit of his stomach, turning his blood to ice. Refusing could unleash devastation beyond his imagination. Yet choosing Sarah might write their deaths in blood. No, he shouted, voice trembling. I won't play your games. I refuse. The very ground shuddered beneath them, a primal roar gathering intensity as it echoed through the darkness. The shadows danced around, swirling fiercely, igniting a frenzied chaos that threatened to consume everything. The creature's grin morphed into a snarl, its eyes blazing with an insatiable hunger. You meant to be a noble hero, Jake. But heroes don't refuse. They choose. And just as another wave of dread crashed over him, he realized the truth buried deep within the shadows. The creature was lying, and the answer might not be in choosing it all. With a heart full of uncertainty, all he could ask was, what horrors did his defiance unleash? As the ground groaned under him, Jake felt the raw energy of the beast swirling around. Its laughter echoed, a cacophony of menace entwined with the thousand whispering voices of the shadows. Fear held him taut, like a string pulled to its breaking point, and he forced himself to think beyond the throbbing panic that threatened to consume him. Nothing is truly black and white, he muttered. There must be another way. The moment those words escaped him, the world shifted, as if the shadows themselves had paused to listen, their undercurrent of hunger momentarily stilled. Jake's eyes darted toward Sarah, a fleeting glimpse of the girl he once knew beneath the monstrous visage she wore like a mask. The confusion in her gaze twisted his heart. Did she remember who she had been? Did she fight against the darkness that consumed her? Jake, she whispered, her voice trembling. Please help me fight it. Her plea pierced through the fog of fear hanging over him, but it was punctuated by the creature's growl growing louder. Stop your foolishness. She is lost. Join her or be consumed. A shudder crawled through his spine. Could she still be saved? The writhing faces in the shadows began to chant, louder, harsher each tone a reminder of their twisted fate. They wanted him to surrender to the beast and seal their destinies. His breath became shallow as visions of their possible lives flickered through his mind. Hope wrestled with dread. Pull the threads of your father's legacy. The creature rumbled, sensing Jake's hesitation. It binds her to the darkness. Choose wisely, or you will witness her eternal torment. The urgent words snapped him back to the moment. He couldn't explore every convoluted option. He needed clarity. He could feel the weight of the notebook, a guide or trap. It had shown him paths marked with blood. Dread settled in him as he realized. The rules had never been meant to save. Did his father knowingly choose paths to pain? Which rule speaks of salvation? He called out, deriving sudden courage from his rage. You feed on despair. What if I find a way to turn this back? With a flicker of hope igniting in his chest, he turned to the pages of the notebook, muttering to himself, searching for whispers of redemption amidst the doom. The pages threatened to crumble beneath his fingertips as he pulled it closer, breaths quickening with every fraying edge. But the shadows surged as if sensing the shift in his resolve. You think you can resist the darkness? Foolish child. It has always been part of you. Jake's heart pounded, remembering then the forgotten rules listed below, the survival tricks, the rules of fear. They laid bare remnants of past lives, sacrifices made in desperate circumstances. Love is a weakness, he enunciated, voice trembling, understanding creeping in like cold fingers. And yet, is it not the one thing I have left? Without warning, in a lightning-fast motion of desperation, he ripped a page from the notebook, drawing shadowed symbols as the incantations flared alive with power. The earth trembled, the shadows recoiling from the glowing fringe of light that enveloped him. Jake felt the energy pulse, a fragile shield against the beast and its thrumming chaos that crackled in the air. Sarah's eyes widened, but she remained shackled, trapped in the darkness threshold. Jake, no, you could, she began, but the shadows hushed her with a ferocious swell. "Do not doubt me," he shouted, not only at the creature but at the doubt clawing within him. The growl deepened, sinister and laced with fear. "You are defying fate. But know this: an open door brings both light and shadow, and you may unleash a greater terror than I." The warning echoed as a searing light exploded from the ripped page, bathing the clearing in blinding brilliance. Everything stilled, the sudden silence swallowing his urgency, while Sarah's form trembled within its cocoon of darkness. He faced the beast, pulse racing. "I'll take the risk if it means saving her." Just as the shadows wavered, a dreadful howl unfurled around them, an unearthly sound that heralded the return of what had been lurking all along. Was it agony or release he was about to wield? His heart raced. What monsters, old and new, would rise in the aftermath of his defiance? Choices unfolded, but the darkness still closed in, threatening everything he held dear. And then, in that breathless moment, in the heart of the unfolding terror, Jake had to wonder what truly awaited him beyond the light. The light pulsed, blinding and electric, slicing through the oppressive darkness with fierce determination. Jake felt its warmth enveloping him, a strange comfort amidst the chaos. As the shadows shrieked and hissed, their power momentarily diminished. Yet, in the very next breath, dread settled heavily in his gut. What had he just unleashed? The shadows trembled, a chorus of whispers rising in pitch as they recoiled. "Foolish boy! You think you can bind us?" they screeched, a mix of fury and disbelief threading through their chorus. But Jake held his ground, the newly forged symbols glowing fiercely in his hands. If there was any chance, any glimmer of salvation for Sarah, he had to believe it. "Remember who you are," he shouted, not just to the beast that loomed beyond the light, but to Sarah herself. "You are not this. You are stronger than the darkness that binds you." For a thin slice of time, the dim flicker of recognition flashed across her eyes, and Jake's heart jumped. Could she hear him? Could she fight back against whatever chains held her captive? But the moment was fleeting, swallowed whole by the shadows that surged forward again. More ferocious than before, with a guttural roar, the beast lunged at the edge of the light, teeth bared, eyes seething with a ravenous hunger. The ground shuddered beneath Jake's feet as the monster smacked against the shimmering barrier he de-summoned. It was a horrible sight. He could see its immense form pressed against the translucent shield, muscles coiling, claws raking at the air, desperately searching for a weakness. "I will devour your hope," thundered, voice like grinding stone. "Your love is a broken mirror, and it only reflects your doom." Jake clamped his eyes shut for a moment, feeling the insidious darkness claw through. That moment of clarity the light had sparked. Memories swirled around him, laughs shared, dreams planned, and that first spark of love with Sarah. He couldn't lose that, not now. The notebook shook in his hand, the symbols pulsing with the energy of pleading faces, but the faces of the damned. It reminded him of his father, of the sacrifices made, of lessons learned too late. Pain danced on the edge of his awareness, pinching memories that threatened to cripple him. "Tell me the rules. Which one can save us?" he shouted at the beast, desperation seeping through his words. "You think I shall hand you my secrets?" the creature hissed. "Your father's own greed led him to lose everything. Why do you think I had your beloved? This dance has only just begun." And in the midst of that taunting, Jake felt a creeping realization. These rules, this place, fear was the currency the beast traded in. The more desperate he became, the more tangible its power grew. He needed to settle the debt. Pain and suffering breed strength. He remembered from one of the torn pages each etched word striking against his resolve, urging him to confront the shadows of his past. He couldn't allow fear to manipulate him now. "I will not give up on her." He raised his arms higher, focusing on the swirling symbols, pulsating with newfound intensity. Each line began to drip light as he breathed deeper, summoning the remnants of sheer will and love pooling inside him. "Bring forth the light." The words broke free, thunderous and echoing, as light exploded from within the symbols, too bright, too fierce for the darkness. The clearing shimmered, the air scarred by a blinding wave, pushing back against the looming horror. But something else rippled through the fabric of reality. Something darker yet familiar, slithering beneath the illumination. Jake's breath caught in his throat. More shadows spilled forth, writhing and hissing, unearthing fragments of his past. Faces twisted in agony, eyes pleading for release, the ultimate price of his father's previous choices. What had he awakened? Terror tangling with dread, Jake fought against the rising tide of fading memories, frantically grasping for the light. I won't let your darkness win. With a surge of both power and fear, Jake turned back to the beast. What rule do you fear most? And in that moment, it struck him what was the true price of survival. Would he understand the cost before it was too late? As the shadows crept ever closer, awaiting their moment to snatch him away, Jake felt real fear pulse through him. What if the cost revealed something he wasn't ready to acknowledge? What monstrous transformation awaited if he dismantled the rules governing this nightmare? In that charged moment, clarity cracked through Jake's fear. He had seen the price of the game and felt it clawing at his essence. No more sacrifices, no more playing a part in a game designed by others. This was his life, his choice. The shadows loomed, tense with anticipation, whispering their secrets in hushed tones. He could almost see them, wretched, reaching hands yearning for the promise of despair. The creature's eyes, those soulless, hungry voids, seemed to draw his very essence into their depths. But Jake wasn't just a pawn in this wicked game. He was the son of a man who had faced the darkness and survived, even if the legacy was tainted. Rule 5, Jake blurted, a single potent thought forming like fire in his chest. Face the truth, he declared, locking eyes with the beast, daring it to respond. A palpable silence followed, heavy with desperation. Shadows stretched, twisted, and recoiled, as though aware of the audacity of Jake's revelation. The creature snarled, a guttural sound that sent chills through his spine. You believe you know the truth? It mocked, teeth bared in a bone-chilling sneer. Yes, Jake yelled back, spine straightening with determination. The truth is that I choose my own fate. I won't be bound by your rules or my father's. I choose to save her, and that alone changes the game. With that declaration, he raised the glowing notebook, the pages flickering with residual power. This isn't just a weapon. It's a reminder of who I am. I refuse to cower. The creature recoiled, a gale of anger swirling around it. The energy pulsated, sending shockwaves rippling through the shadows, unsettling their malevolent forms. Memories crashed through Jake's mind, endless laughter, shared secrets, stolen glances with Sarah. The warmth of love engulfed him, igniting inside a fire that felt unstoppable. Stand with me, Sarah, he pleaded, locking eyes with the reflection of his past. Fight this together. You're stronger than their darkness. Remember who we are. For a brief moment, the darkness around Sarah flickered. Those hollow eyes widened as Jake's plea broke through the veil of malevolence. He saw the ghost of the girl he once cared for, shining through the darkness. Jake, she gasped, hate retreating from her expression, replaced by something else, faint glimmers of hope that dared to pierce the gathering shadows. Jake felt the ground beneath them tremble, the creature's presence trembling in uncertainty. Would it truly collapse under their unity? Together, he shouted, drawing on every memory, every ounce of love and longing to anchor them to reality. Together we can break free. The light surged, radiant and vibrant, enveloping them both. For every inch the darkness darkened, the light glared back, crashing together like a storm. The echoes of the past intertwined with the living, whispering words that tasted of joy, loathing, fear, and triumph. With one last roar, the creature lunged, hungry for the despair of the impending collision. But Jake and Sarah stood firm, a united force against the encroaching evil. The night split, fractured between love and fear. The energy exploded, a brilliant, blinding wave sweeping through the clearing and spiraling outward. The shadows howled in agony, contorting as if they were torn apart by a great celestial force. The ground cracked, revealing the tormented echoes trapped within. Jake squeezed his eyes shut, bracing for the worst. This might cost everything. This could all end in blood. But Sarah's grip tightened around him, a promise, a tether. When he opened his eyes again, the creature's terrible visage filled them, caught between dimensions, unraveling the evil that had long held sway over their lives. Then came silence, stillness wrapping around them like a shroud, a blanket stitched from the warmth of love and companionship untouched by the remnants of dread. In the aftermath, Jake blinked, trying to absorb the radiant light now settling over the forest. Where shadows had once lurked, vibrant life burst forth instead. The faces that had haggled over his choices, the whispers that tormented him, faded, leaving only a calm stillness. Jake? Sarah's voice was laced with uncertainty but edged with a hint of hope. There she stood, unharmed, radiant against the defeated shadows. "We did it," he said, his heart soaring as reality wrapped around them warm and bright. But what now? They both wondered, gazing out into the shimmering dawn that now flooded Elmsworth. Freedom intertwined with the chill of lingering fear, thick in their throats. "Let us go home," Jake whispered, hand grasping hers tightly. With every step forward, they left behind the remnants of a haunted legacy, shadows silently retreating as dawn swept over the haunted town. Elmsworth was no longer a prison crafted by fear, but a place where they could forge paths anew, one layer of darkness lifted together. What lay ahead was uncertain, and the scars would remain, but Jake knew one thing. They would face whatever came next side by side, together resilient against any remnants of darkness. This was their beginning. Now, if you enjoyed this thrilling conclusion, you need to subscribe immediately to our channel. Don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, giving us the boost we need. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to give your support. Only true fans understand how important this is.